It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
What up, guys? Welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host, Harry Wilmington. If I sound weird, it's because I'm getting over a little cold, so my voice isn't as boisterous as it normally is, but there you go. Also, for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I now record this show live every day at 8:15. Honestly, the reason for that is because I didn't want to have to keep editing these videos, so I figured if I record it live, I don't have to do any editing, and then I can just take the sound from it and put it on the podcast. So if you want to join me at 8:15 Pacific Standard Time, I record these shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you join the live show, you could possibly ask me questions during the course of the show. So, but yeah, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:15, I now record these live, and then I use the audio to put on a podcast for later. So anyway, on today's show, I'm actually going to be answering a question from a guy. I did a video last year called "His Ex Had Sex with Another Guy During a Breakup. Is this a betrayal or not?" And in that video, I talked about how basically when you break up with somebody, obviously you and her are not with each other, which means you can hook up with whoever you want to. And so if you guys decide to get back together later, you can be mad at her all you want to, but the reality is that happened when there was a possibility of you guys not getting back together. Therefore, you can't really be mad at her. So somebody left me a comment under that video asking a question. And as I tell you guys, this show was all about you guys and me answering your questions. So if you have any questions you want me to answer on the show, if you have any you can leave them in the comments down below the video. You can also write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com, and I will answer your question on the show. If you want more one-on-one coaching, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the coaching tab, and we can set that up. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into this guy's question because I think it's an interesting one. And his question is this. He says, I broke up with my girlfriend and she and me were sleeping with other people. We came back together, but what I see is she was already talking to that guy before we broke up. And I just confirmed that because I saw her Facebook and I feel bad. Can you tell me what to decide to stay or leave because I can't get that out of my head? So I did a show, I think a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about the idea of forgiveness in a relationship and the fact that sometimes people will do something to you and it could be a thing that it seems like it's unforgivable or it seems like it's just constantly in your head. And in that video, I said, if you cannot realistically forgive that person and not bring it up, then you have to decide for yourself whether or not that's something you want to continue or whether that's a relationship that needs to end. And so this guy's situation is very similar to that. So I'd give a similar answer, except for there's a few things in here that I do want to point out. So to start off with, I don't know how he found out the thing on Facebook. Maybe he just went on there and started looking through her profile and realized that there was a guy that was commenting on her, post, or that they were talking back and forth. But however you found this out, the worst thing you can do in this situation is jump to conclusions and assumptions. All right. So for example, let's say he found some dialogue they were having back and forth. Well, was it flirty dialogue? Did it seem like at the time they were just friends, but then maybe because she got with this guy after you guys broke up, that it seems as though it started with them flirting with each other on Facebook prior to you breaking up? Because the reality is this guy could have just been a friend that she was talking to. And then when you guys broke up, she went to him to get counsel and he was like, comforting her. And then they just happened to figure out that she was kind of broken up and horny and he was single and horny and they decided to just hook up to each other. So we don't know if that necessarily means that they hooked up with each other prior to the breakup. Okay. All we know is that he was apparently commenting on Facebook. Now, I don't know. Again, he's saying he saw her on Facebook talking to this guy, but we don't know if that means it was through just posts that she was posting up and he was commenting, or if it was through Messenger, okay? So it really depends upon the avenue in which this was happening, okay? So I don't want to make any assumptions on that, but I will say this, is that, again, this is one of those things where you really need to, before you jump to a conclusion, you really need to dig deep You really need to do your full research. And that might mean going to her and saying, hey, so I noticed during the time frame when we were close to breaking up, there were these comments or messages left on your Facebook page. And I just kind of wanted to know like what the situation was. Were you guys feeling each other at the time? Were you actively flirting with him? Based on some of the messages that I saw, I got the impression that maybe more was going on at the time. And so I need to know what's up. So figure out all the information before you jump to a conclusion. Now, let's assume that these were flirty messages. Or let's say they were commenting on each other's posts back and forth, and they were saying some things that indicated that they were starting to feel each other. Or let's say that these were messages that he saw in her messenger to this guy, all right? And that they were, in fact, really flirtatious and bordering on the, possibility of her trying to possibly get out of the relationship with him to get with this other guy, all right? So this is one of those situations where, again, if you're recognizing it, you have to decide for yourself, is this going to be something that reigns over your head to where it's going to constantly bug you? Because if it is, what that's going to mean is that you're going to feel obligated to constantly try to check her phone or to constantly ask her where she's going or to try to, go up on her social media and say, well, I saw this message you posted with somebody else. What does this possibly mean? And that is an exercise that is not fair to her. And it is not fair to you. But more importantly, it's not fair to you because you shouldn't have to spend your time trying to monitor somebody. You should just be able to trust them, okay? Now, obviously, in any relationship, there's going to be inevitably something that happens where trust gets broken, whether you say something, whether the other person does something. And so this is not to say that, there's this whole theory out there that if somebody does something the first time, you got to believe what you're seeing. And then you got to know that's how they're going to be. And I don't honestly fully believe that. I believe that as you're getting to know a person or just in the throes of a relationship, sometimes there's going to be rough seas. And in the process of those rough seas, you may not have the tools at the time to really figure out what's going on. And she may not either, So for example, she might have felt that maybe she wasn't feeling that she was getting enough romantic stuff from him, or he wasn't being flirtatious enough, or he was starting to, do less of the romantic things that he used to do in the relationship. And maybe she came to him and was trying to talk about those things. And he was just brushing her off like, well, that's not a thing. And I am being romantic. And, how we guys get, we like to assume that we're doing everything right. And if somebody comes to us with a complaint, oftentimes our first reaction is to be, that's not a thing. Well, I logically do these things. Therefore, you can't emotionally feel these things. And so if that was happening, then maybe she was just looking for some other guy to be able to give her that feeling that you used to give her. If that's the case, again, this does not excuse the behavior, but it does bring about the idea of cause and effect, whereby if there's an action that's happening, you always want to look at, as much as I want to blame this other person, what other things were going on in the relationship that could have potentially caused this thing to happen? Was I not there listening enough? Was I not there being romantically there for her the way that she wanted me to be? Okay. And so you have to figure out those things. And then from there, decide if maybe, because let's real talk. Okay. Let's say she was doing that. Let's say you were doing that and she wasn't feeling the romantic things from you anymore. And then she goes to somebody else for that feeling. Okay. So then you break up with her. Well, that's great. Except for the next girl you go to, you're going to do the same exact thing because you weren't aware that you need to be doing more romantic stuff, or your previous girlfriend told you and you weren't listening. So then you go to this new girl and you start doing the same stuff, and then she cheats on you or starts talking to some other guy. And it's a thing that keeps happening girl after girl. And you're not realizing, oh, it's not that these girls all want to cheat on me. It's that at some point in the relationship, I'm the one that's not doing the things I used to do. And therefore they're flirting with other people. Okay. Now, again, that's the situation. Okay. But it might not be. It could just be you were doing everything right and she decided she wants to go talk to other guys anyway. Okay. But regardless, the point is that if you see this happening, you have to decide if you want to forgive her or not. And so I don't believe in this thing of somebody does something wrong one time and that's who they are and it's a wrap. Okay. I always believe in the 2-tier system, which is basically somebody does something. And then again, you can decide if they do something to you that you just feel is absolutely unforgivable, then you could say, I'm out. But I usually like to give people a chance to show me that they're actually legitimately sorry about the thing they did. So in this situation, you before you guys broke up, you recognized there were some texts that were on a Facebook, or you feel like she was flirting with this guy that she ended up getting with. So when you guys get back together and then you find this out, you can go to her and have the conversation, and then you can decide, hey, you know what? So you were doing these things, but I'm really mad at you, but what made you do that? Like, you can figure out what it is that made her feel like she could flirt with this other guy. And then from there, you can decide if, based on what she told you, if that's a situation amongst your guys' selves that you can resolve. Or if you say, you know what, I didn't like that action. And so even though you're saying sorry and you're apologizing, I just don't feel like I can continue on because I'm going to always worry that you're going to be flirting with another guy behind my back or texting him or Facebooking him or whatever. And so I'm out. Or you could say, you know what, I understand now why you did that. And you know what, there are things on my end that I could be doing better, but this is not the way we resolve the situation. So I'm going to forgive you, but we need to work on how to communicate when things in the relationship aren't pleasing us. Now, after you have that conversation, if you find later down the line that she does it again, then this is now a repeated action. Because the reality is, in relationships, sometimes you're going to do stuff where it's just out of character, or you didn't know that you should have done that thing, or you knew you should not have done this thing, but you felt compelled to, and then you realize that wasn't the best action to take. And so you have to give another person grace, just like you want them to give you grace. But that said, that doesn't mean you stay there for repeated offenses. So if she did this thing where she comments on this guy's Facebook and you found out after you guys got back together, again, this could be an example of something that you feel that if she's not going to do it again, you can totally forgive it. And it's only happened one time, so you could conceivably forgive it. Or you could decide, you know what, I've been in this situation before where another girl I dated did the same thing, and then I took her back, and then she ended up doing it again and hurting me worse, so I'm out. Ultimately, it's up to you. But you have to decide, again, if you're going to be willing to actually forgive the person. Because if you can't, it's not fair for you to stay in the relationship and then constantly berate them and try to follow them around and try to, make sure they're not sneaking and doing stuff, because that kind of energy can actually lead a person to want to cheat again. Like you saying, oh, I forgive you, and then you're constantly on them and harassing them. It's that thing of like, it's almost like the Oedipus story of like, you're trying to do all this stuff to prevent her from doing it, but doing all the stuff you're going to try to do to prevent her from doing it is going to make her want to do it some more. So don't be in that relationship either. If you can't forgive her for it and it's going to just absolutely wreck you, then get out and that be it, But if you think that you can have the conversation and legitimately figure out why she was doing it and then decide you want to forgive her, then I'd say it's worth it, okay? But you have to make that decision. So hopefully, Guy, this helps you out. Now, with that said, guys, obviously, knowing what situations that you're in and how to deal with them can be really, really hard, especially when you're with somebody and you really feel strong feelings for them. It's easy to either excuse their behavior or be blindsided by it and not recognize what's going on. And so you might need to develop a backbone. You might need to figure out ways to constantly be present in the relationship so they don't want to jump ship in the first place. If you need help with that kind of stuff, I do offer one-on-one coaching at introvertdatingsuccess.com. So be sure to check that out. Also, guys, if you want a question answered on one of these shows, leave a comment down below or write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com. Lastly, guys, this show is all about you, and I love you guys, your support. I love the guys that are over there subscribing to the YouTube channel. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers, so definitely do that. That said, if you want to support monetarily, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the tip jar tab, and you can show your support that way. That's it. That's the show for today. I'm Harry Wilmington. Thank you guys for watching so much, and I will be sure to catch you on the next one. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Introvert Dating Success Podcast. Visit us at introvertdatingsuccess.com for more great tips on attracting women using your natural introvert charm. Oh, yeah.